I'm John Starmer. I'm the scientific lead with the Maui Nui Marine Resource Council, and I'm currently focused on doing some water quality projects with the current project that we experienced today, trying to actually get around the entire island and understand water quality on a much larger scale than most people have looked at before. The council got a multi-parameter or multi-function water quality data sonde, which is basically an instrument that measures a bunch of different things. It measures how clear the water is, turbidity, pH, how acidic or basic it is. You can get temperature, depth, salinity, how fresh or salty the water is. What we did today was we had it connected to a little handheld computer, effectively, that allowed us to interact with the probe and see the readings as they were coming through real time. We have it on deck on a boat, and we've rigged a little pump device, so it's pulling water out of the ocean through a hole in the hull, which is intentional, and it is flowing that water past the sensors. So we're still getting the same information as if we had it over the side, but because it's not out in the wild, it gives us a little bit more control. We have a little bit more control over speed and things like that, and don't have to worry about knocking it into things. The other feature that we had today was that little computer has a GPS, so we basically trigger the machine to start taking samples automatically. Today it was every 2 seconds, and as we're moving along the coastline, we're able to get all of the different measurements at a point in time and then tie that to a location, and then that allows us to map the water quality. Basically, we can put the dots, and for any given parameter, let's say how turbid, how clear or not clear the water is, we can then create a map along the coastline and identify places that are very, very clear and identify areas where it's not so clear. And that similar process can happen for any of the parameters that we're measuring. The more interesting piece to the puzzle that we're trying to tap into with this is looking at freshwater input into the coastal environment. And marine water is pretty much consistent, and if you see anything less salty, you know that there's some influence of freshwater. If you're going by Kailua Pond, that water is coming out of the pond through the sand dunes and influencing the nearshore environment, and it's not a very big change. But in a volcanic island like we have here on Maui, you can also get things like lava tubes that basically channel underground rivers and can come out sometimes remarkably far offshore and produce a very detectable freshwater signal. So things like that is what we're looking for. Can we find evidence of seeps or these stronger flows of freshwater, especially now where it's dry season, and if we are seeing freshwater signals, that's really going to say that's groundwater, and that's going to be interesting. The stuff that we're doing now is really the first look, and really it's been a very much dry season look. As we have opportunity to do more of these surveys, we're going to go and hopefully get some more wet season information to understand how strong an influence some of the canyons and cuts that we have around the island are. What's that influence on the nearshore environment? The hui is definitely much more in a position of, I guess you could say, water quality guardianship and keeping track of how that's changing. That's an incredibly valuable data set. What this is hopefully going to do is possibly identify other areas that deserve a closer look. We're only looking at 5 or 6 different parameters. We aren't looking at nutrients with this instrument. We're not looking at bacterial levels, but freshwater again can be a clue. Freshwater is sort of the conduit in most cases for nutrients from land to get into the ocean. So if we're seeing freshwater, a logical next step is to say, well, let's see if that water is carrying nutrients. If it is, or excessive nutrients. If it is, then there's a little bit more detective work to say, well, where is potentially that source coming from? I think it's impressive that the council has, allowed us to do this venture. It's probably a grander scale project than most small nonprofits take on, but I think, again, in providing sort of a big picture snapshot of conditions, and again, hopefully wet and dry season, it gives us a perspective that you don't get from going from spot to spot to spot, or even just focusing on small areas. So getting that understanding of what does Maui as a whole hold, I hope that this work will prove valuable in identifying other areas that we either need to be concerned about or can kind of cut off the to-do list and say things seem to be in decent condition.